these Christian missionaries of the past, before America was ever formed, were white missionaries, of course. I know I talked to you about this, who thought white people were better than the Indians. So there was much bigotry and racism involved when Christianizing the American Indian population. Many Christian sects today and some missionaries still think this way, still believe whites are superior to other races, and still believe males to be superior to that of females. Christianization had sought to convert these Indians or kill them if they wouldn't convert. Forced conversions were the norm back in the day. And sometimes they still are, just less violent today than they were in the past. They find their ways to conquer. They find ways. So back then, forced conversions were the norm. Most Indians had been killed and or removed from their homes. But those Indians who resisted these Christian white European conquerors, these Indians who resisted them and put up a fight, many had been killed in battles. And many Indian tribes that were known as hostile to the whites. So there was a few Indian tribes who were known as hostile to the whites, and therefore the whites definitely sought to overtake them. And of course, they were hostile to the whites specifically because look what the whites just did. They just conquered these lands, the Europeans. But these white Christian Europeans saw the lands as theirs to conquer, as they didn't view the Indians as equal to them. They thought them to be savages. So Christianity has always sought to dominate, to conquer, to overtake the lives of others, to force their beliefs on the population. And they did so not only thinking that they could, some of these Christian missionaries that are out there, they believe that they are doing good by trying to turn the non-Christians to the Christian sect because they feel non-Christians will suffer hellfire if they don't save them. Some of these missionaries have bad intentions. They want to, back in the day even, they wanted to conquer. They were racist. They were bigoted. They wanted themselves into the laws of the land, which is what they are now. But Christianity didn't spread with a message of peace. As I always say, it spread through the world because of its domination, because of its violence and forced conversions. Now Joshua took over after Moses died, but Joshua, like I said, was a warmonger. And because his followers, his people, believed Joshua to be doing the work of God, so to speak, they followed him, obeyed every order that Joshua gave to them. So by using God as a tool to get them to obey Joshua, Joshua could say and do whatever he wanted to and get those followers to obey it and kill for him. So I'm going to read a lot of Bible verses pertaining to Joshua. So we start out in the book of Joshua. Now, I'm going to read this off. Joshua chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. So verses 3 and 4, Joshua chapter 1, it says, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. So this is God speaking to Joshua. So again it says, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. And further on in Joshua chapter 1, verses verses 10 through 18 says, "So Joshua ordered the officers of the people, 'Go through the camp and tell the people, get your provisions ready. 3 days from now you will cross the Jordan here to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you for your own.' But to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, 'Remember the command that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you after he said, the Lord your God will give you rest by giving you this land. Your wives, your children, and your livestock may stay in the land that Moses gave you east of the Jordan, but all your fighting men ready for battle must cross over ahead of your fellow Israelites. You are to help them until the Lord gives them rest, as he has done for you, and until they too have taken possession of the land the Lord your God is giving them. After that, you may go back and occupy your own land, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you east of the Jordan toward the sunrise.' Then they answered Joshua, 'Whatever you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we fully obeyed Moses, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your word and does not obey it, whatever you may command them, will be put to death.'" Who rebels against your word and does not obey it, whatever you may command them, will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. They did not follow Joshua's commands. They would be killed. They had to do what Joshua told them to do. And the ones who were willing to do it, they believed that their God was telling Joshua what they should do. So God was used also as a war tactic. They conquered these lands claiming that God told them to do it, that this land was given to them by God. So they went in, killed a lot of people, stole the land from them, conquered it, and claimed God gave them that land. They conquered it. They stole it. They killed others in order to have that land, to take that land. That wasn't God giving them the land. That was them stealing it. So, chapter 6, I'm going to read you the whole chapter. Joshua chapter 6 says, "Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in." So Jericho, they were trying to protect themselves against these Israelites who were warmongers. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once." Now, before I go on reading this, the reasons why they were to march around the city for, the 7 days with trumpets and, ram's horns and whatever, making lots of noise as they did the marching and stuff. It vibrates the city. All those people, it severely vibrates the walls and everything on that city. By continuing to do that, eventually it weakens the walls. But anyway, we're going on with this. Now, Joshua chapter 6 says, "Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out, no one came in." I already read that part, and I'll reread it. Then it says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua, 'See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carried trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the seventh day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. Now remember what I said, scientifically, if you have a lot of vibration, if you do that enough times, it will eventually weaken the walls. It'll weaken it. There's nothing pertaining to any god that would cause this to happen. This would scientifically be proven to happen. If you got enough vibration, it would eventually just collapse. So it says, have 7 priests carry 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priest blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast, and the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in. So scientifically, that was not God making the thing go down. The priests did not do, it's just scientifically. You've got that much noise go on, that much vibration, it will eventually weaken the walls. So going on, I'm going to read this. So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the army, advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests, carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord, went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests, who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time, the trumpets were sounding, but Joshua had commanded the army, do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voices. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout, then shout. So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to the camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priests sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab, the prostitute, and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury. Basically, they're going to steal all their goods. They're not only stealing the land, they're going to kill them, and they're going to steal their riches. That's what they're doing, and they're claiming God told them to do it. And they're going to put it in the treasury, so technically Joseph and the leaders of the people will profit off of this. So going on in the chapter, I'm going to read it. It says, when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted. And at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it. Get that was not just men. Okay? There were women, children, babies on board. It wasn't just men. They went in there and they just murdered everybody. So, continuing, I said they devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it. Men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. What did those animals do to them? They would have killed them for food is what they did. So anyway, going on, Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out and all who belong to her in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother, her brothers and sisters, and all who belonged to her. They brought out her entire family and put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. See, they had helped the spies when the spies came to search out the land, so they'd know what to tell them and they'd know how to attack them, basically. This woman had helped those spies. So going on, they said, then they burned the whole city and everything in it, but they put the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. So basically, Joshua profited from them doing this. He profited big time. He got, obviously, loads of money and whatever. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho, and she lives among the Israelites to this day. So this is in the Bible, I'm saying. So to this day, definitely isn't this day. She would have died thousands of years ago. Okay, so continuing on. At that time, Joshua pronounced the solemn oath, "Cursed before the Lord is the one who undertakes to rebuild this city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son, he will lay its foundations. At the cost of his youngest, he will set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. Yeah. You know what his fame was? He'd just go on and murder everybody. So, of course, there were other cities and towns that were trying to defend themselves in all this. They seen the Israelites coming. And yeah, his fame spread through the land, particularly because him and the Israelites were very violent people. And all these lands who were willing to try to defend themselves were looked at as bad because supposedly God had told them that to take those lands that God had given to them. And these people that they went up against, the people who tried to defend themselves against the Israelites were looked at as the ones in the wrong. So going on in the book of Joshua, we're going to read from Joshua chapter 8, verses 1 through 8. So it says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua, 'Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai.'" Ai is spelled A-I. "For I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. You shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may carry off their plunder and livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush behind the city." Joshua chapter 8, verses 16 through 28 says, "All the men of Ai were called to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel." So the men they followed them. Meanwhile, they had other people there who went in and sought to murder everyone and then take their animals. So going on, It says, Then the Lord said to Joshua, Hold out toward Ai the javelin that is in your hand, for into your hand I will deliver the city. So Joshua held out toward the city the javelin that was in his hand. As soon as he did this, the men in the ambush rose quickly from their position and rushed forward. They entered the city and captured it and quickly set it on fire. The men of Ai looked back and saw the smoke of the city rising up in the sky, but they had no chance to escape in any direction. The Israelites, who had been fleeing toward the wilderness, had turned back against their pursuers. For when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city and that smoke was going up from it, they turned around and attacked the men of Ai. Those in the ambush also came out of the city against them, so that they were caught in the middle, with Israelites on both sides. Israel cut them down, leaving them neither survivors nor fugitives. But they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the men of Ai in the fields and in the wilderness where they had chased them, and when every one of them had been put to the sword, all the Israelites returned to Ai and killed those who were in it. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai. So, note, everyone in that city. So there wouldn't not have been just men and women. There would have been children, babies, and the unborn in that city too that would have died. So they're leaving out those when they mention this. So, okay, so going on with the chapter. So again, I'll reread this one part. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back the hand that held out his javelin until he had destroyed all who lived in Ai. But Israel did carry off for themselves the livestock and plunder of this city, as the Lord had instructed Joshua. As you should know, there was no God to instruct Joshua. Joshua just ended up conquering lands, stealing from people, killing them for his own gain, and claiming God told him to do it. That God gave them his followers, Joshua's followers, were willing to do this for him. So, okay, we go on in the chapter. So Joshua burned Ai and made it a permanent heap of ruins, a desolate place to this day. So Joshua chapter 10, I'm going to read the entire chapter. Joshua chapter 10, it says, Now, I don't know how to pronounce this name, I'm just going to wing it. Now, Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Ai and totally destroyed it, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its king, and that the people of Gibeon had made a treaty of peace with Israel and had become their allies. He and his people were very much alarmed at this, because Gibeon was an important city, like one of the royal cities. It was larger than Ai, and all its men were good fighters. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, appealed to Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhiah, king of Lachish, and Deber, I don't know how you pronounce that, Deber, king of Eglon. Come up and help me attack Gibeon, he said, because it has made peace with Joshua and the Israelites. Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon, joined forces. They moved up with all their troops and took up positions against Gibeon and attacked it. The Gibeonites then sent word to Joshua in the camp of Gilgal, Do not abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings from the hill country have joined forces against us. So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." After an all-night march from Gilgal, Joshua took them by surprise. The Lord threw them into confusion before Israel, so Joshua and the Israelites defeated them completely at Gibeon. Israel pursued them along the road, going up to Beth-horon, and cut them down all the way to Azekah and Makkedah. I hope I pronounced those cities right. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth-horon to Azekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them, and more of them died from the hail than were killed by the swords of the Israelites. On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon." I hope I'm pronouncing that city correctly. So remember what I told you earlier in this podcast. There's no scientific way that this can happen. So I'll continue on with the chapter, reading this bullshit. It says, "So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. As it is written in the book of Jashar, the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day." Okay, let's stop there and think, like I told you. What damage would that do? Now, technically, the sun and the moon, yeah, well, the sun cannot move. And, I mean, the rotation of the earth and the moon, in other words, this would cause a lot of problems. I mean, that just cannot happen, and we continue to live. Scientifically, this is not possible to do, nor has it ever been done. The earth continues to move, it continues to spin. The sun stays put where it is, and we rotate around it. And the moon cannot stop. Everything has to do the way it does in order for us to live, in order for us to survive. This has to continue to happen. In order for there to be life on Earth, this is a part of it, of our survival, is having this stuff constantly rotating and spinning and moving. So this is not possible for this to happen. Okay, so we're going on in this chapter. It says, "There has never been a day like it before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a human being. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel." Then Joshua returned with all Israel to the camp at Gilgal. Now the 5 kings had fled and hidden in the cave of Makkedah. When Joshua was told that the 5 kings had been found hiding in the cave at Makkedah, he said, "Roll large rocks up to the mouth of the cave and post some men there to guard it. But don't stop. Pursue your enemies, attack them from the rear, and don't let them reach their cities, for the Lord your God has given them into your hand." So Joshua and the Israelites defeated them completely, but a few survivors managed to reach their fortified cities. The whole army then returned safely to Joshua in the camp at Makkedah, and no one uttered a word against the Israelites. Joshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring forth those 5 kings out to me." So they brought the 5 kings out of the cave, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon. When they had brought these kings to Joshua, he summoned all the men of Israel and said to the army commanders who had come with them, "Come here and put your feet on the necks of these kings." So they came forward and placed their feet on their necks. Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies you are going to fight." Then Joshua put the kings to death and exposed their bodies on 5 poles, and they were left hanging on the poles until evening. At sunset, Joshua gave the order, and they took them down from the poles and threw them into the cave where they had been hiding. At the mouth of the cave, they placed large rocks, which are there to this day. That day, Joshua took Makkedah, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He put the city and its kings to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it. He left no survivors, and he did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Makkedah to Libnah and attacked it. The Lord also gave that city and its kings into Israel's hand. The city and everyone in it Joshua put to the sword. He left no survivors there, and he did it to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Libnah to Lachish. He took up positions against it and attacked it. The Lord gave Lachish into Israel's hands, and Joshua took it on the second day. The city and everyone in it he put to the sword, just as he had done to Libnah. Meanwhile, Horam, king of Jazer, had come up to help Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his army until no survivors were left. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Lachish to Eglon. They took up positions against it and attacked it. They captured it that same day and put it to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it, just as they had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron and attacked it. They took the city and put to the sword, together with its king, its villages, and everyone in it. They left no survivors. Just as at Eglon, they totally destroyed it and everyone in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him turned around and attacked Debir. Well, it's spelled Debir. I don't know. Debir, whatever you want. I don't know the name of that city. But in other words, they took the city, its king, and its villages and put them to the sword. Everyone in it they totally destroyed. They left no survivors. They did to Debir and its king as they had done to Libnah and its king and to Hebron. So Joshua subdued the whole region, including the hill country, the Negev, I don't know how you pronounce that one either. It's spelled Negev. The western foothills and the mountain slopes, together with all their kings. He left no survivors. He totally destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua subdued them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza and from the whole region of Goshen and Gibeon. All these kings and their lands Joshua conquered in one campaign, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all Israel to the camp of Gilgal. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, he sent word to Jobab, king of Madon, to the kings of Shimron and Ashab, and to the northern kings who were in the mountains, and the Arabah, I don't know how you pronounce that, Arabah south of Kinnereth, in the western foothills, and in Nepheth, Dor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and west, to the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Jebusites in the hill country, and to the Hivites below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. They came out with all their troops and a large number of horses and chariots, a huge army, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. All these kings joined forces and made camp together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, because this time tomorrow I will hand all of them slain over to Israel. You are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots. So Joshua and his whole army came against them suddenly at the waters of Merom and attacked them, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel. They defeated them and pursued them all the way to Greater Sidon, to Mizraboth. How do you pronounce it? Mizraboth, Mayim, and to the valley of Mizpah on the east, until no survivors were left. Joshua did to them as the Lord had directed. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. At that time, Joshua turned back and captured Hazor and put its king to the sword. Hazor had been the head of all these kingdoms. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed, and he burned Hazor itself. Joshua took all these royal cities and their kings and put them to the sword. He totally destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. Yet Israel did not burn any of these cities built on their mounds, except Hazor, which Joshua burned. The Israelites carried off for themselves all the plunder and livestock of these cities, but all the people they put to the sword until they completely destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed, as the Lord commanded his servant Moses. So Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. So Joshua took this entire land, the hill country, all the Negev, the whole region of Goshen, the western foothills, the Arabah and the mountains of Israel with their foothills, from Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir, to Baal God in the valley of Lebanon below Mount Hermon. He captured all their kings and put them to death. Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. Except for the Hivites living in Gibeon, not one city made a treaty of peace with the Israelites, who took them all in battle. For it was the Lord himself who hardened their hearts to wage war against Israel, so that he might destroy them totally, exterminating them without mercy, as the Lord had commanded Moses. At that time Joshua went and destroyed the Anakites from the hill country, from Hebron, Deborah, and Anab, from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua totally destroyed them and their towns. No Anakites were left in Israel territory, only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did any survive. So Joshua took the entire land, just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal divisions. Then the land had rest from war. And finally, in Joshua chapter 12, verses 1 through 9, it says, "These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated and whose territory they took over east of the Jordan, from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon, including all the eastern side of Arabah. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. He ruled from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, from the middle of the gorge to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. This included half of Gilead. Gilead or Gilead? Gilead, maybe. He also ruled over the eastern Arabah, from the Sea of Galilee to the Sea of Arabah, that is, the Dead Sea, to Beth Jeshimoth, and then southward below the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephaites, who reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. I don't know some of these names, so I'm just guessing. If I pronounce the name wrong, I pronounce it wrong. But anyway, so going on in the chapter, it says, he ruled over Mount Hermon, Seleka, all of Bashan, to the border of the people of Geshur and Makkah, and half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them. Okay, Moses, the servant of the Lord, and their Israelites conquered them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to be their possession. Here is a list of the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Helek, which rises toward Seir. Joshua gave their lands as an inheritance to the tribes of Israel according to their tribal divisions. The lands included the hill country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slopes, the wilderness, and the Negev. These were the lands of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These were the kings. So then it lists a bunch of kings here through the next few verses. And the kings that they listed, it equals out to be 31 kings in all. So finally, in Joshua chapter 13, when Joshua had grown old, the Lord said to him, "You are now very old, and there are still very large areas of land to be taken over. This is the land that remains, all the regions of the Philistines and Geshurites, from the Shihor River on the east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron on the north. All of it counted as Canaanite, though held by the 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, the territory of the Avites. On the south, all the land of the Canaanites, from Era of the Sidonians as far as Aphek and the border of the Amorites, the area of Byblos and all Lebanon to the east, from Baal-gad, it's Baal, and then the next word is Gad. You figure it out. Below Mount Haran to Lebo Hamath. As for all the inhabitants of the mountain regions from Lebanon to Misrephoth, Maim, I'm not Arabian or anything. I'm just guessing here how to pronounce some of these names. So anyway, that is, all the Sidonians, I myself would drive them out before the Israelites. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for an inheritance as I have instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and half of the tribe of Manasseh. Joshua then divided up all the lands Moses... Okay, now I'm taking note. Joshua then had divided the lands Moses had promised to them, and those lands which Joshua had already conquered. So I want to take note. I recently did a video on the book of Leviticus and the Abrahamic religions, which are Jews, Christians, and Muslims. I mentioned about Christianity's cult-like behavior, which, like I said, included all the Abrahamic religions. And I often compare religion to that of a cult, especially MAGA. MAGA is a Christian nationalist cult, with Donald Trump as their orange god, their leader. And they will do anything for him, including if it means to kill if necessary, as January 6th proved. Now, and as I mentioned, Christianity did not spread due to its peaceful message or anything like that, what some Christians like to claim. It spread through its dominance, to conquer, to dominate other lands, to kill others who would not convert. The Bible is full of violence. It promotes violence as long as their God allows it. They will do whatever their God tells them to do. And MAGA is a Christian nationalist cult following their orange god, Trump. And it's been proven they will do anything for him. For one man, they will do anything for him. It's very dangerous In the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church even killed scientists because they saw them as blasphemous. They went against the church's teachings. So scientists who searched for truth, who asked the questions, who observed for themselves what the truth actually was, they were killed by the Catholic Church, put on trial, everything. So scientists were killed in the Middle Ages because they spoke their truth over that of religious dogma that had been the belief system across the ages. The Catholic Church sought the destruction of anybody they considered as blasphemous or to be witches or who would not willingly convert. Popes went to war with other nations and religions. Religious wars are an attempt to conquer lands and people and force them to convert, as you have seen, as we've been talking about this whole time that I've been doing this broadcast. So it's what George Carlin, most of you know, famous comedian, he died several years ago. He used that phrase, which I constantly use and laugh at. This is what George Carlin once said. He said this: "My God has a bigger dick than your God." And I like to think of that phrase whenever I'm talking about this sort of thing. So, it's only a few modern-day Christian denominational sects who claim Christianity carries a message of peace. Only a few of them. And that's in modern time, that's not previously. But that's not how Christianity spread across the world. And even these peaceful sects will still seek to conquer in their own way, using manipulation and indoctrination over others in order to do it, and putting their beliefs into the laws of the land, which violates the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which in turn, the Constitution was made to protect all people. We have to stop the domination, the conquering of others that Christians seek to perform. We must stop it at its base, stop it at its source, and get them to realize what they are doing to the rest of us. Again, this podcast is not to promote hate or discrimination. It's coming from an educational viewpoint, from an educational perspective. And many Christians, anything that threatens their belief system or anyone who questions that type of belief system, they think they're being persecuted because they're not being able to cross the line. And when they cross the line and interfere in others' lives, and when we say something, they think they're being persecuted, when it's them who are persecuting others. They're seeking to dominate, to conquer, to take over your own belief system and replace it with theirs. I am an ex-Christian. I know what this is like. I'm now an atheist. When Christians tell you to read the Bible more, when they tell others to, I say, go ahead, read the Bible more. You'll end up like me. Read it more. Take it, but read it with your God glasses off. Read it for the way it's meant to be read. Take your God glasses off. Forget about what your Christian sect taught you to believe or what they think it says. Don't read it through your blinders. Don't read it through your God glasses. Read it with an open mind. And view it for what it really is. This is a cult. It's a dangerous cult seeking to overtake you. And anyone who is not like them are a threat to them, and thus they seek to dominate and to overtake you. In one way or another, they seek to do it. And these days, most Christian sects will kind of carry a message of peace to try to influence people into believing. But it used to not be that way. There were forced conversions. You were forced to convert or they would kill you. They just have a little bit more of a manipulating type of way, indoctrination, using all sorts of tactics to peacefully get you to do it. And by placing their belief system, their Christian belief system into the laws of the land, they're forcing others to conform to their ways, who will not willingly convert. So today's long lesson had to do with domination, what's called Christianization, where these Christians and Christian missionaries and all over there seek to convert the non-Christian, thinking they need to be saved from hellfire. And it's designed to wipe out a people's culture and their own religious or non-religious viewpoints in order to replace it with their own, to replace it with Christian religious viewpoints. That is commonly known, as I've mentioned before, commonly known as Christianization. They've always sought to dominate, to conquer, to steal from you, to take from you what is rightfully yours and replacing it with themselves. It's never been about peace. It's never been about love for others. It's been about themselves, and it's been about dominating your life and taking over others' lands. You Christians who may be listening, this is not taken from a position of hate or discrimination against you. It's taken from an educational viewpoint, an educational perspective. You need to be willing to ask yourself those big questions, to do the research, to find answers, and only then will you get to the truth. And you also need to know the damage your religion does to your mind, your body, your children, your society, the people around you who do not feel the way you feel. You are taking the rights away from others in order to benefit your own. You're attempting to steal the lives of other people and make it your own. And in turn, here in the United States, you're stealing people's right to believe the way they would like to believe and live their lives according to the way they feel like living. in order for you to live your own life, you also attempt to make others live the way you feel they should live too. And that's not right. That's not moral. So please, if you are Christian, continue to listen to this podcast. And don't be afraid to ask those big questions. Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you think the Bible is true? Why do you think it's morally true? Why do you think there's good morals in it? Most of the Bible is violent. And even Jesus sometimes was a selfish and violent dude. He spoke of love towards others, but when it came to a choice between him or your family, it better be him. The rest of the Bible is violent and very cult-like. And because Christianity is the norm in the United States, it's not viewed as a cult. But it really is. But us atheists need to just join together for support, and we have been doing that by creating more and more atheist podcasts. That's the end of our podcast, and good night. And like I said, remember to like and subscribe. Please share. And I could always use more followers and subscribers. Have yourself a good night. Look forward to talking to you the next time.